On today's episode of Locked On NHL, players that could sway the Eastern and Western Conference Finals, we got you covered.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On NHL. We are your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube. Go hit that button right now so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. On today's episode of Locked On NHL, we'll talk about the second round, which was a little bit of a... We'll fill in the blank. We'll also talk about the Eastern and Western Conference Finals X Factor players who could sway the series one way or the other. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And we know one player who will not be a potential X Factor for the East or the West. That's Cam Fowler, because, of course, the St. Louis Blues did not make it.
Still playing in our hearts. Playing in our hearts.
Well, and you know, if either of these teams had the opportunity to make a trade, they would do it. Naturally.
Oh, 100%.
But before we get there, we just wrapped up round two. And you had a couple of series that went the distance. One, to be quite honest. Two series that went 5 games and one series that went 6 games. So JD, round 2 just finished. Second round was fill in the blank.
Disappointing? Boring? One of those. I think especially after round 1, right? Because you had such great theater in round 1. And not to say that there wasn't great games and stuff, but like coming off the high that was Dallas Colorado series, you had, the Winnipeg Jets and St. Louis going to 7, right? Even your Minnesota Wild, right? And the drama with the with the Vegas, and like all those games are just like one thing different. I'm sure you haven't thought about this at all, but like one little thing different. Maybe a guy isn't offsides, maybe, et cetera, like where that series just was so close. And again, there were some great games, but it felt like a letdown. I think it's probably the best word to use. A letdown after the first round. And it feels like with the playoffs, it should be building, right? And the first round was so great. And like, even this, like the quote unquote worst series in the first round was Toronto, Ottawa. But like, those two teams like just don't like each other. It's very much big brother, little brother right now.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt like a letdown. And maybe this is just that, like, you take a breath around 2 and we get some great hockey in the finals here. But it did feel like a little bit of a letdown.
I'm going to use the word businesslike to describe round 2 because
clock it at 9, clock out at 5. Let's go, baby.
This was a perfect example in the Carolina series, especially, of just clocking in, just doing your job, and just clocking out for the day once you're done. And there's been a lot of talk, a fascinating amount of talk about the Carolina Hurricanes and how boring of a style of hockey they play. Well, hey, guess what? They are 4 wins away from the Stanley Cup final. So obviously it's working. And we, not to pick on them, but we just saw, I think, a good example of why flash and sizzle and style only get you so far. Toronto Maple Leafs, once again, like they are a team that possesses a lot of very high caliber goal scorers. They went up against the Florida Panthers and they lose in the second round. The Buffalo Sabres, who have not made the playoffs in the last 14 years, have double the playoff series wins that the Toronto Maple Leafs have this century.
That's amazing.
Let that sink in. Buffalo Sabres haven't been there in 14 straight years, and they have double the series wins that the Maple Leafs do.
I think I was working at Blockbuster the last time the Sabres went to the playoffs.
I was simply 59 years old at the time that the Maple Leafs last won a series. I've aged gracefully, as you can see. But the Florida Panthers, another example. Just did their job. It was interesting hearing some of Brad Marchand's comments after the game, as you had all this hype and all this fanfare on the Maple Leaf side of things, and Florida just kind of laid in the weeds and just went and won the series. And look at what the Oilers did to the Vegas Golden Knights. They just come in, they win that series in 5, and far and away the series that I think saw the most like back and forth, with the exception of Panthers Maple Leafs, which, by the way, you called as probably the most watchable of the 4 second round series. I had it dead last on my list. The other series that
you had Carolina Capitals as you're like, I gotta see what's happening here. I didn't know you were that tired. It just needed some background white noise in the background.
Well, to be fair, the reason that I put that as the number 1 for me is because I wanted to see if the Capitals were for real.
Spoiler, they were not.
Capitals are a very, very good team, but again, you don't, like, style points don't get you anywhere in the postseason. Like, you have to just go in and do your job, and every player to a man has got to contribute to that. And the Hurricanes just up and down the line just better executed throughout the series, and that's why they won. And I think the other series that had the most like compelling games was probably the Jets and the Stars, beyond Panthers Maple Leafs. But you look at the 4 teams that are left, Panthers over the Maple Leafs. I know it's the 1 versus the 3 seed. I don't think there's a lot of surprise there. Hurricanes over the Capitals. I maybe a little more.
I think a lot of us with the Caps were like, the end of the season, there was a little bit of stink. Like, is this team, how far can this team actually go? I think there was some questions with the Caps. Yeah.
Stars over the Jets. I mean, the Jets have turned early exits into kind of a trademark,
a wild like approach.
Yeah. Yes. As much as they invented the whiteout, they also invented early. I shouldn't even make that joke, considering the Minnesota Wild haven't won a first-round series in 10 years. Who am I to chirp? How many Stanley Cups have you won, loser?
What's the playoffs? Sharks fans asking.
I'm over it. And then the Oilers, is that really a surprise that they beat the Golden Knights?
No, I mean, and those games I think were like, you had some very compelling games in there, right? You had an overtime, you had 2 overtime games, including the game 5. That was a very fun 0-0 game going into overtime there. You had the crazy Draisaitl goal at the end to give Vegas their only win. Like, that's kind of crazy, right? Vegas's only win comes off a Draisaitl goal in that series. But like that, those were very compelling games. But you could just watching that, like, you've seen Edmonton really find another gear as the playoffs have gone on, right? And there was some, we talked about even the beginning before the playoffs, like, wow, man, the Kings got to be licking their chops because this Edmonton team looks terrible. And now this Edmonton team looks like a freaking machine, and we're going to talk more about them later. But like this, you're hoping, right, that again, maybe the second round, maybe a little palate cleanser, right? You had a great appetizer in the first round, maybe a little palate cleanser in the second round as everyone just kind of did their business. And now in the conference finals here, we get a nice main dish before the Stanley Cup dessert. So that's the hope. That's the hope, right?
It's either that or we're going to get 2 series that go 4 or 5 games. And it's just like, it just further digs into itself. And then it's like, oh, the Stanley Cup final is already here. Okay.
Well, to be fair, I mean, the Canes haven't won. I think it's been 3 straight Eastern Conference finals where they've been swept. Yeah, it's not out of question where for them just to like maybe just win a game in the Eastern Conference Finals here would be nice for them. But I do expect them to win at least a game. But I mean, before we get to like Which of the two series personally excites you more? And why is it the Edmonton Dallas series? Because that looks like so much fun. And then the Canes Panthers looks like a rock fight.
Well, based off of my logic in round 2, you would think I would say Panthers Hurricanes, right? Because I just have to see if the Carolina Hurricanes are for real.
They for real?
No, it's Stars Oilers. I mean, you've got Mikko Rantanen on this insane run going up against Connor McDavid. You've got Jake Ottinger going up against insert goalie here. Stuart Skinner probably. It's been a fun run for the Oilers, and honestly, I was just talking to a friend about this. Would we be upset if it's a rematch, Oilers Panthers?
For a series that went to 7 last year, no, I would be more than happy to watch that again.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be really fun. So yes, but I mean, for me, it's Panthers versus anybody. I think it's a lot of fun, especially as the defending champion. The Canes, yes, it's effective,
but they're a real team. Come on.
They are a real team. Yes, they are a real team. So,
well, why don't we'll leave that for as the series unfolds, because I'm sure there'll be more than a few predictions that end up being completely incorrect from this show, as is just par for the course. But let's take a look at the X factors for both series to finish out the show. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. A superstar for Florida, a little bit banged up. We'll talk about it as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. And if you are looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious, you can crack into a great source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, which gives you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. I call them my guilt-free snack because anytime I'm watching a game, listeners have heard me say this many times, I have a bag on standby at all times. It's the honey roasted, no shell. I put them in a Tupperware container and just leave it right on the coffee table, ready to go whenever I need. And anytime I have a handful or two, I don't have to feel bad that I'm eating a delicious source of protein as opposed to something with maybe a little more sugar in it or, chocolate. So if you're looking for a much healthier snack, get snacking and get cracking today with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. Moving to Eastern Conference Finals, X Factor players, Panthers, Hurricanes. Let's start with the Panthers. And JD, if you have a name off the top of your head, you go first and I will counter.
This guy named Matthew Tkachuk, pretty important player, right? For the Panthers, right? Kind of the tone setter, not the captain, Sasha Barkov, this guy, but kind of the tone setter. And since his arrival in South Florida, really has transformed this team into what they are, right? Hasn't looked himself since coming back from his Four Nations injury, right? And so even against the Leafs, right, he was out there, but it wasn't full Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know if you can get away with that against the Hurricanes, who are very happy to just kind of grind you down and, we're going to take a bajillion shots on goal and, hope that we just one finally squeaks in. I think for Tkachuk, right? It would be nice to see him kind of elevate his game and be more Matthew Tkachuk like as you gear up for the Eastern Conference Finals and what they hope to be another Stanley Cup run here. Having him closer to being his normal self, I think, would be huge for them. So, because you've gotten plenty of offense, you've gotten plenty of contributions from other people. Guys like Sam Bennett, Seth Jones had a really great Game 7 against the Leafs. But I think having Matthew Tkachuk doing Matthew Tkachuk things out there, I think everyone just kind of slots in a little bit better. And then you don't have to ask a bunch of other guys to kind of fill the role of Matthew Tkachuk.
I'm going to counter with the Rat himself. I'm going Brad Marchand as an X-Factor player for the Panthers. Now, you may say, well, that's not fair because he's a high-profile player that
I picked one of the highest profile players in the league.
I look at it this way, like he was brought in to play lower in the lineup, and through 12 postseason games so far, he's got 12 points, including sending the
That's
Toronto
a point per
Maple
game.
Leafs. Yeah.
Yes.
Last I checked, the math checks out that it's a point per game. He had 3 points in the game that sent the Toronto Maple Leafs to the golf course. And
including the empty netter, the empty netter there.
That was pretty sweet. Not gonna lie. He also did plenty of mixing it up in the series. He had 24 penalty minutes in game 5 and 6. So he not only has contributed offensively, but he's mixing it up, and he is causing a lot of problems for the opponents. And you talk about tone setters. I think he's been a great addition to that tone setting for this Panthers team. If he can keep it up and you then are rolling with the likes of Barkov, Bennett, Tkachuk, if he's able to get back to something similar to where he was, Sam Reinhart, like you look at all these options and all of a sudden you've got you've got Marchand stepping in to kind of take the lead. That causes some trouble. So he is my X Factor player. What about on the Carolina side?
I'm going to go with young Logan Stankoven. Last year in his first playoff run with the Stars, little disappointing, I would say. I think getting kind of a taste of playoff hockey last season with the Stars, of course, gets traded to Carolina as part of the big Rantanen musical chairs that we experienced. But I think for Stankoven, right, for a team like the Hurricanes, who I think it's fair to say they just don't have the star power of the other teams that are left, right? And that's no knock against. That's just kind of like how they do things, right? But I think for him, after last year's, again, maybe that first real taste of playoff hockey with the Stars, I think it's a big time for him, right? To kind of help guys like Aho and, Svechnikov kind of to be that third scorer for them as a team that does kind of struggle to score goals compared to the others, right? Where, you look at Rantanen and with the Stars, right? You need a big goal, Rantanen. I can put 3 in a period for you easily, right? You need a big goal with the Panthers. Look at Barkov, look at Bennett, like some of these other guys who can score big goals. So I think if Logan Stankoven, if he's providing that secondary scoring behind Aho and company, I think that's going to go a long, long way for the Hurricanes to win this series. So I think if he's scoring and providing a lot of offense, probably good things coming for the Kings.
I'm going a little further down the list here. I'm going to go with Taylor Hall, who has 2 goals.
The old man
so
himself.
Far. Yeah,
yes.
He's got 2 goals so far in the postseason, and he was quoted quite lengthily recently, just raving about what it has been like to play for Rod Brind'Amour. That's
to be fair, he was a Blackhawk for 2 years, so
accurate. He's like, oh man, this is just great to get like
winning hockey,
any level of coaching, and it's like, well, yeah, you've been in like Siberia for a couple of years, so this is kind of why you bring a guy like this in, is to match the depth of the other teams. And you said it, like Carolina may not have the superstar talent like the other teams that are in the conference finals. They've got the depth though. And this is going to be a chess match between these two teams as to matching lines. And if you can get all the way down to say your third line or wherever Taylor Hall ends up slotting in, if you can get him to get, 2-3 goals in this series and really, really match that depth. Florida had 17 different players score goals in their first 10 postseason games. You got to be able to kind of match that. And if Carolina can get, Taylor Hall, Logan, Stankoven, and others to do that, that's where we got ourselves, baby, you got yourself a series here.
Yeah, I think this series, bold prediction, I think it goes longer than 4 games. Bold prediction.
Yeah, I would say 7 and all 7 go overtime, but that's a little crazy.
Double overtime every game. Yes,
we get a 7 overtime game in Game 7, and then they're like, we got to take like a week off before the Cup final.
The Cup final is now after the draft. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, July 1st is when the Cup final starts. Like, yes. Hey, free agency. So that's the Eastern Conference half. Now, obviously, neither of us touched on the goaltending matchup, which is going to be very interesting to see how that fills out. But I think we're both in agreement that the lineup is the bigger piece of the puzzle here. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, on the Western Conference side, shocker, similar spots that we're both going to go, but we'll take a look at the X Factor players in the Western Conference Finals as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day. We are your team each and every day as well. Seth, Toupal, and JD Young finishing things out, talking about the Western Conference, our half of the bracket, and X Factor players for the Dallas Stars and the Edmonton Oilers. How about we start with the Dallas Stars?
I'm going to go with Heiskanen, who made his return, right? And we've seen how Thomas Harley's had a big step in his postseason games, right? And they're saying, oh, look, now the Stars have 2 number 1 defensemen. Great, especially with the Oilers, who have 2 number 1 best players in the world, right? With McDavid and Draisaitl. So I think Heiskanen, who looks solid in his return, I think it's going to be big for him to come back and have a massive series here. If the Stars want to finally get over the Oilers and make it to the Stanley Cup here, I think Heiskanen is going to be key for the Stars, right? We've seen Rantanen, who's had a monster type of run. I know a guy we're going to talk about here in a minute for the Stars, hopefully has kind of finds his game. But I think, though, for Heiskanen to try to neutralize whatever guy he's matched up with, whether it's Draisaitl, whether it's McDavid, or whether it's both of them, that's going to go a long, long way for the Stars to try to make it to their cup run here. Ottinger's been playing really, really well. Now you add another layer of protection with Heiskanen. I think he's the big factor for me.
Jason Robertson, who also is coming back from injury, and in 6 games, just 1 assist so far for Robertson. Now, obviously, as you mentioned, Rantanen's been on another planet. You've gotten good production so far from Rupe Hintz, Wyatt Johnston, Mikael Granlund has been
Granlund,
so
baby!
Far. Yeah,
Sharks wild legend.
Former San Jose Sharks legend, Mikael Granlund.
Dude, was a point per game for the Sharks. That bum Sharks team.
Not to be outdone by former Minnesota Wild legend Sam Steele, who has a goal, nearly had 2, if not for some antics by the Jets committing a penalty to pull him down. Anyway, you are going up against an Oilers team that possesses 2 of the top 5 players in the NHL in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Rank them however you want, but Draisaitl is in the small circle of best players in the league. And so you need to match, and Rantanen can't do it all himself. I'll throw the caveat in here that it doesn't necessarily have to be Robertson, but it kind of feels like, okay, kid, this is your chance. This is your chance to step up and to shine. You're back in the lineup. You've kind of gotten some games under your belt. Now's where we need you to take off. And either be the 1 or the 2 with Rantanen, but it does feel like they're going to need somebody else to kind of step up and take the lead offensively in this series.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does feel fair. A guy like it feels like with Jason Roberts, and yes, every goal scorer goes hot and cold, but he feels like it's either he's absolutely on fire or he's ice cold. And I think it'd be really nice timing here for him to find his game for where this series feels like you're going to have to win some games where you score like 5 or 6 type of goals. Like that's just how the Oilers play. And having, Ranson, who's been, like you said, on another planet right now, having Robertson be able to help out with that, you have Wyatt Johnson, who's an absolute monster as well. Mikael Granlund has been great for the Stars. Like, just as many, it's all hands on deck when it comes to scoring against the Oilers. So, yes.
What about the X factor on the Oilers side of the ice?
It's a cop-out, but insert goalie X here. So whether it's Picard, whether it's Skinner, whether you just put them both at the same time and just play 4 skaters and 2 goalies, fine with me too. I think, right, because it feels like with the Oilers, everything works, and you're just always holding your breath with the goalie because it feels like they're either going to get you a shutout or you're going to see what you saw against the Kings early in the series where it's like they couldn't stop a beach ball. This offense with the Stars has the ability to produce, and again, like we just talked about, and so I think whoever's in net, whether it's Skinner or Pickard, or I wouldn't be surprised if we see both of them in net at some point, throughout the series. They just need to. I don't think they can outplay Otter, but you just need to be close, right? Can you give me 90% of that of Ottinger, who's been one of the best goalies in the playoffs right now?
I am going to go with Evan Bouchard. Hear me out on this. So as we talked about Miro Heiskanen kind of being the one to facilitate amongst the defenders, if we look at both of these teams, there's an underbelly to the D-core on that, second to third pairing. There are some areas that can be exploited by both offenses. And so for Bouchard, I think I look at him as a guy that possesses the offensive talent to be able to do that same thing. And it just underscores how important it is to have defensemen that can step into the play and aren't afraid to shoot the puck, because there's going to be a lot of attention put on McDavid, a lot of attention put on Draisaitl. And if you can pull goals in from other sources, that's going to be very valuable for this Oilers team in a series where you're going to be tested going up against the depth that this Stars roster is able to throw at you from a forward standpoint. So if you can find a couple of D pairings or at least one that you can exploit pretty regularly, that's an advantage that you need.
Yeah. I think Bouchard, who it feels like he's either beloved by Oilers fans or Oilers fans like, just get this dude off my team. Like there's no in between with him. Like some people just hate it. Like I guess like just because with every offensive defenseman, right, where it's just like get this dude off my team if they're not playing defense. But yeah, I think Bouchard needs to have a big series, and we saw him last time when these two teams. I think he had if I recall, he had a big series against the Stars last year. So I think he's going to need to try to replicate that for the Oilers to make it back to the Stanley Cup final. Like I'm super excited about this series. Like I think give me 7 games, give me 9 games, give me as many games as you want. I think this is the series. This one has the best ability, I think, to match up the Colorado Stars that we saw in the first round, which might be one of the best playoff series we've seen in ages, to be honest. Yes,
I think you're right. Now, it is funny you have a player that is kind of polarizing in Bouchard while also having Darnell Nurse on your roster too. Like you want to talk about polarizing. Like,
he's the side-eye monkey beam of just like
oh, they're talking about polarizing players on the roster. Wait, I didn't hear my name.
What?
Why don't we let's do predictions here to finish things off, because there's no chance that these go wrong. So we might as well lock it in before both series even start. Are you swayed in either particular direction for Hurricanes Panthers?
Panthers in 6 for me. The Panther, like you said, that business-like approach. That team has been through it all. They've done it all. Bobrovsky. I know Bob got a little rocky there at the beginning of the Leaf series, but they've righted the course. And if Tkachuk is anywhere close to being Matthew Tkachuk, I don't think the Canes have the horses to go with the Panthers. So yeah, give me Panthers in 6. How about you?
Same. I just there's something to be said about getting to this point and not succeeding multiple times against a team that has succeeded multiple times. Like that kind of creeps in to the narrative. It creeps into the heads of the players while the games are going on, especially if things are tilted not in your favor. So I just got to go with the experience here. The Panthers have advanced past this stage 2 straight seasons. Like, I think they make it a third. On the Western Conference side is going to be the interesting one. Like, you've got a real compelling series between the two teams. I think Dallas is going to get it done in 7.
Me too. The Pete DeBoer 7th game luck. The man. Perfect at game 7s. I think this is a Stars year, right? And like you've seen them building and building. They've gotten close. This has been a really competitive team. I think they have the perfect balance of star power, Mika Rantanen, and depth. And Ottinger's been playing, I think, some of his best hockey of his career. A guy who I was a little worried about the past couple seasons. This year is really locked in back there. You're getting healthy right now. I feel like they have everything. But yeah, I do think it goes 7. But the Pete DeBoer luck comes in for game 7. So.
And we're going to get to see that play out because his record in game 6 is not great. And
nope. You can't win a game 7 without losing 3, baby.
I don't have a definitive feeling as to how the series goes, like win-loss, until we get to game 6. Then I know the Stars will lose, but then they'll win game 7.
Again, you can't win a game 7 without losing 3 in a series. So,
and you want to talk about
knows what he's doing.
You want to talk about a pucker factor after a game 6 loss? Like, look, I get it. Look at me throwing jabs at teams in the postseason while I've been watching postseason hockey for close to a month now already.
You can play the playoffs this decade. So,
Hey, we got roasted in an NFL schedule release video on Minecraft. So something to be said about that, I guess. Yes. Well, we'll see how things play out. So the prediction's pretty easy: Stars in 7, Panthers in 6. We'll see. We'll see if that ends up being true or if some other crazy thing happens here in the conference finals. But that'll do it for today's episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in as you do each and every day of the week. Again, make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Just hit that button on YouTube so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. There are new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.